Hello everyone! Today we're going to be jumping back into Standard with one of my favorite tribal decks to play, and that is Board Wipe Tribal. Now, I know the name is pretty self-explanatory, but let me go and walk through what this deck does. This deck is running a ton of board wipes. So we've got 4 copies of Depopulate, we have Sunfall to exile the board, we have Farewell to exile pretty much anything that our opponents have in play, White Sun's Twilight to gain some life, wipe the board, create some creatures for ourselves. A lot of value there. We also have the Eternal Wanderer, whose -4 ability will also work as a relatively selective board wipe, and will give us some value in the late game in terms of creatures for actually finishing things out. A couple of other noteworthy inclusions in the deck is we have Union of the Third Path for life gain, and then we have some targeted removal to deal with pesky permanents that we otherwise aren't able to get with our board wipes. We have Seal from Existence, we have Soul Partition, Ossification, and Lay Down Arms. Additionally, we have the Wandering Emperor. This is both exiled removal for a tapped creature our opponent controls. It could also make a blocker and let us start attacking. Now, this deck doesn't have too many ways to win, so we did include 2 copies of Realmbreaker, the Invasion Tree. Not only is this going to ramp us into bigger X values for White Sun's Twilight, but this can act as a mill win condition for us. Taking a look at the mana base, we have 1 copy of Eiganjo, 21 basic planes, and then 2 copies of Field of Ruin, just to deal with any creature lands that are able to get around our board wipes. Now, if you guys have been enjoying my content so far, make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on my latest videos. And if you enjoy this video, make sure to give it a like. Let's go ahead and see how this deck does. Alright, here we are on the draw. This looks like a great starting hand. We're going to go ahead and keep plenty of lands, early interaction. Right, our opponent is on a blue-white deck. Could be Soldiers. Look at that, it is Soldiers. Now, Soldiers is actually really good for us since we are, in fact, board wipe the tribe. We're going to go ahead and pass the turn here. Hang on to Soul Partition as our instant speed interaction. I think the key for us here is to not get too greedy. Now, we can use exile removal to get around the death of non-token creatures. Can also consider bouncing with Soul Partition. We have plenty of options. Let's play out the Field of Ruin. And I think we're just going to preemptively play out Ossification. Grab that Siege Veteran, just because we don't want to have to deal with that. Human, alright. There's another Siege Veteran. Yep. Alright, well, we'll go and depopulate this turn. Exchange their board for 1 guy. That seems pretty alright to me. Recruitment Officer, sure. I think we are very close to being able to stabilize here. Yep. We'll just pass the turn. See what our opponent finds. Yeah, looks good. I do want to see a little bit of a wider board before we go for the Sunfall. Yep. That looks good. Let's go ahead and bounce Recruitment Officer. They can play it out again if they want to. We'll see if they do. Yep, they do. Our opponent's now tapped out. With Ossification in hand, I feel like this is a fine time to go for the Sunfall. Clear the board once again. A valiant veteran indeed. Alright, let's start with Union. Drawing Ossification. Go ahead and convert our token. Swing out. Looks good. And then we'll use our Ossification, get rid of the veteran. Keeping the board clear is going to be our go-to play now. Brutal Cathar gets rid of the token. And that's a Coppercoat Vanguard. Let's go ahead and play out Realmbreaker. And I don't think we're gonna actually play the Ossification this turn. Since we've already cast a spell, we don't have to worry about Cathar flipping. Okay, Recruitment Officer, sure. Alright, what I'm gonna do here is I'm going to... Actually, I'm not gonna sacrifice the Field of Ruin, we're just gonna wait. Let's use Eiganjo instead, kill the Coppercoat Vanguard. That's gonna reduce incoming damage by 1. Make things a little bit easier for us. Now I'm going to use Field of Ruin. They're gonna pick their Soldier land. Now this is to guarantee that our opponents have a basic land in their, or have a land that we can take in their graveyard. Play out our Field of Ruin. Now our opponent can use Recruitment Officer here to try and find another card. I think we're going to use Ossification, targeting the Recruitment Officer. Yep. They'll search now. Now both of us are going to be top decking. If we can find a White Sun's Twilight, I think that's going to end the game. Yep, they flash in their reinforcements, and that's fine. Coppercoat Vanguard is really good. Let's go ahead and mill our opponents here. Alright, we'll just go ahead and pick Angel for no reason. Our deck does not run creatures. This is going to be a very important top deck for us. And depopulate, perfect. Clear the board, pass the turn. Can always rely on our board wipes to get us out of a tough spot. Mill some more. Get ourselves an island. Slow and steady. Let's go ahead and use Realmbreaker again. Now that does enable our opponents to exile their Valiant Veteran. Alright, we are in a little bit of a tough spot. We're going to need a better top deck for next turn. I'm going to use Field of Ruin. We're going to pick their Soldier land. Grab another Plains. Our opponent is top decking just like us. And here's Depopulate. Opponent does draw a card, but that is going to save us for yet another turn. Okay, there's Thalia. Thalia does have the potential of being a small issue for us, but we have plenty of mana, thanks to Realmbreaker. Alright, Eternal Wanderer. This is a great pool for us. Let's go ahead and create our Samurai. This is going to be a strong blocker.
We can win this together.
Now that we can start getting some extra value on each turn, we're actually not caring about our top decks as much. No matter what happens here, we'll have to block the Thalia. Alright, that is, in fact, a flying creature. We'll bounce that with the Eternal Wanderer, because we can't have our opponent trying to hit us. I mean, I guess we'll let them go to attackers first. And then once they do attack with the Thalia. Okay. I will definitely be blocking here. Sure. Okay, Realmbreaker here. Let's take another white land. Sunfall. I'm gonna just use the Sunfall on the board. And we've got it. Alright, and here we are on the play. This looks like a good starting hand to me. We have 4 lands. Seeing a lot of lands in our hand is absolutely phenomenal for this deck. The worst thing we can do is not have enough mana to cast any of our board wipes. Go ahead and play a land, pass the turn. Okay, we are looking at an Esper deck, so we're a little bit worried about counter spells that our opponents may have. Right now, the Eternal Wanderer is seeming like our best win con. Alright, opponent plays out Wedding Announcement. That's fine by me. Play a land, pass the turn. Just working to get our way up to the 6 for the Eternal Wanderer. Yep. More than fine taking the 1 damage. Sarah Paragon. Alright, let's go ahead and play out Depopulate this turn. Just clear the board. Gonna put us in a better spot if we draw another land for Eternal Wanderer next turn. Our opponent may pass, hold up the Wandering Emperor. I could see that being a strong play. But we'll see. Yep, alright. They might have the counterspell, but we're gonna go for the Eternal Wanderer here. It does resolve. Let's make our Samurai. Looking good. Alright, so now we have a good blocker. Sarah Paragon again. That's fine. They can replay their land, get some additional value that way. Yep. We have a couple of options for our next turn. We might want to go the Farewell route. We can always pass the turn as well. I think since we have plenty of board wipes, I'm more than happy going with Farewell. We'll go Graveyards, Creatures, and Enchantments. And then we'll go ahead and make ourselves another Samurai.
Thank you for your help.
Yep, Restoration. They'll go ahead and get a Plains here. I think we're very fortunate to not be seeing counter magic out of our opponents. There's a good chance that the Eternal Wanderer is just going to get us there. 2 Unions, that's pretty good. Start by moving to combat, swinging out for those 4 points of damage. And we do get it. Let's go ahead and play out another Samurai. And we'll pass the turn, holding on to Union of the Third Path. Let's see what our opponent gets here. They can't always just discard their plane. Let's get some free ramp. But we'll see. Opponent's thinking pretty hard about this. Just based on the early game, it doesn't seem like they have too many permanents. Okay, sure. Wedding Announcement again. They play the land, so they did want the land untapped. Maybe they're gonna wipe the board here. Get rid of our tokens. Yep, Sunfall. That makes sense. Let's go ahead and cast our first Union. Cast our second Union. Let's gain a whole bunch of life. Now, we can cast a White Sun's Twilight for 5. I kind of like that. Opponent's tapped out, so let's fill the board. And we're gonna go and exile their token, plus on the Eternal Wanderer. Actually feel pretty good about this. You're gonna be able to start swinging in, dealing that toxic damage. We can always flip the Architect with the plus on the Eternal Wanderer as well. Then we're only contending with a single token. If our opponent does have another copy of Sunfall, though, this is going to be much more tempting for them. We can do the same thing, though. Get rid of the token with the Wanderer. Alright, farewell. Sure. Exiles all of our creatures. That makes sense to me. Ossification, gonna get rid of the Eternal Wanderer.
We'll finish this later.
Now, what are the odds of them having another board wipe? I'm not too sure, but we're just gonna clear the board for now. End the turn. We'll let our opponent develop a little bit this turn, and then we'll cast our White Sun's Twilight. Yep, opponent gets a Plains. That's fine. And flip, alright. White Sun on 6 now, going up to 40 life. So we'll go ahead and clear the board, replace it. Since our opponent only has 2 cards in hand, I'm not thinking they're gonna have another way out. If they had another Sunfall, they would have played it before. Would have to be that card that they drew right there. Okay, it's just another farewell. Alright, well, we do have to pass the turn here. We're just gonna wait for our opponent to do something. We have Ossification for when they inevitably play out a Planeswalker of their own. It's a slow war of attrition for us here. Well, here's White Sun's Twilight. Playing a fun game of how many times do I have to do this before it works? It's looking good. Now that our opponent keeps hitting their land drops, so we are in a really good spot here. We'll go ahead and swing out. We do have Soul Partition as instant speed interaction. We can do that at the end of our opponent's turn. So far, we are presenting lethal, so this has to be a good draw, and we've got it! Alright, here we are on the play. I actually like this hand. It has some good early interaction. We do want to see one more land out of this. Ideally, our starting hand is going to have at least 3 lands in it to guarantee that we can play out our Union, but I like having both Realm Breaker and Union here. This feels like a pretty good start, and we do draw the Plains, never punished. Feels pretty good. Now, our opponent could be playing an enchantment deck here. Alright, well, this bodes well. This bodes very well for us. We're gonna keep on making our way up towards those board wipes and let our opponent play out as many creatures as they want to. End of their turn, we'll go ahead and play the Union. Yep, gain some life. Sure. Have some access to some more mana. Yep. Looking good so far. Swings for the 2. That's fine by me. Alright, here's Union. We'll gain all that life back. Okay. With 2 Wandering Emperors in hand, we're just going to pass the turn. If our opponent attacks, we can flash out the Wandering Emperor. Use it for blocks. Yep. Samurai. We're gonna block the Coppercoat Vanguard. This is gonna reduce the damage on future turns from our opponent. Sure, Augur of Autumn. That's fine. Now, do we want to get rid of the Augur? I think we do. I'll go ahead and get rid of that right now. And we'll make our Samurai.
Keep watch for intruders.
And play out Realmbreaker. Now that we've played out Realmbreaker, we'll be able to start ramping off of our opponent's deck. It's going to help us eventually hit Sunfall. It is unfortunate because we haven't been hitting our land drops. Yep. And that's fine. The Wandering Emperor was eventually going to die anyway. I'm actually not too afraid of what our opponent has going on here. I'm going to pass the turn. We're going to hold up all of our mana for Wandering Emperor to see if we need it, and if we don't, go for Realm Breaker. It's a judgment call that we can make during our opponent's turn. Ideally, I want to see them tap down all their creatures and fill up their board. I think they might play hesitantly because they know we do have Wandering Emperors. Yeah, sure. +1/+1 counters, grow the board. That's fine by me. We'll wait for attackers. See if our opponent wants to risk the initiate. They do not. So let's go ahead and mill them some. Yeah, we'll take the fun land. Alright. We do have the Eternal Wanderer now. I think we're going to go ahead and play her out. And we're going to clear the board except for our opponent's Luminarch Veteran. Attack for 2. We can chump with the token if they go and attack the Eternal Wanderer. With 4 cards in hand, our opponent still has a chance at rebuilding the board. Yep, we'll just chump here. Looking good. Now I'm curious if they have more creatures. Yep, there's Thalia. Sure. Augur of Autumn. Looking good. Alright, well, we'll go ahead and cast our Sunfall here. Clear the board. And make a Samurai.
I brought backup.
Slow and steady, we're going to be winning the value game. Looks good. Alright, opponent replays their hand. I actually really like where we're at here. We're gonna just make another Samurai. And then I think we're gonna pass the turn. Yep, no need to attack. We'll hold these up as blockers. Maybe we can incentivize our opponent to swing in. I'm okay with them using the Recruitment Officer. Yep. Nice, they find a Brutal Cathar. This is fine. Go ahead and exile one of our tokens, sure. Alright, well, let's go ahead and flesh out the Wandering Emperor, and we're going to exile the Recruitment Officer. That's going to keep them off additional card draw. Then we'll use Realm Breaker, mill our opponent some, get a land back. Let's pick a Plains this time. And then we'll turn our incubated token into a creature. Okay, land for a turn. Let's go and get our Samurai.
We can win this together.
+1, make that guy a little bit bigger.
Show them how we greet our enemies.
Now, I don't want to deal with +1/+1 counters. So we'll just get rid of Catilda. And then I will move to combat and swing for 6. Now the reason I'm swinging here is because we have Soul Partition. If our opponent has some way to remove one of our creatures and goes to swing at the Eternal Wanderer, we can actually deal with that. Which I do like. Okay. Augur of Autumn, sure. Yep. Looking good. Okay, Realm Breaker, mill our opponent some. Nice. Let's pick Advisor. That's the first one. That feels pretty fun. Moving on to my turn. Land drop. Let's go ahead and make another Double Strike Samurai. And let's make this guy a little bit bigger. See if we can start forcing our opponent to block. If this current play pattern continues, we are going to be in a very strong spot. Yep, opponent takes all that damage. Go ahead and end the turn. Now that does flip the Brutal Cathar. And that's fine by me. Sure, Catilda again. Yep, another initiate, sure. All of this is looking pretty good to me. It is going to be very difficult for our opponent to attack here since we have advantageous blocks. Now let's see. Ah, Convoking Knight Errant, sure. That's fine. It might be time to start plussing on the Eternal Wanderer. Okay, opponent finds another Brutal Cathar. As well as the Luminarch Veteran. Before we go to my turn, let's go ahead and mill them out a little bit more. We'll pick Antelope. I like Antelope as a creature type. And do we want to bounce anything just yet? I don't think so. We'll go ahead and pass here. Yep, flipped Brutal Cathar is going to go ahead and get rid of that. That's fine. We draw another land. Now we can exile the Augur. I do kind of like that.
My judgment is final.
Now, do I want to start plussing here? That's the big question. I don't think so. I think our samurais hold better value for us right now. So we'll just go no attacks, hold up the blockers, pass the turn. We've got our Soul Partition. There's a Luminarch Veteran. Looking good. Brutal Cathar. Yep. Also looks good. We'll be able to use Realmbreaker again. We are slow and steadily milling our opponents out. Okay, before we go to end step, let's go ahead and return that Brutal Cathar. We'll pay the 3 life. That's going to keep one of our tokens alive. Yep. Just because our opponent did play those 2 spells, so this Brutal Cathar is going to flip. As soon as we find our next board wipe, we should be able to stabilize. Go ahead and use Realmbreaker here. Get our land. Opponent's down to 20 cards in their library. Yep. They'll probably exile one of the Double Strike tokens. At least that makes the most sense to me. Yep. Alright, well, here's Sunfall. So, first and foremost, we just gotta let our opponents know that we have the board wipe. We'll swing out. I don't really care about the Sunfall token being a little bit smaller, since we're just gonna be controlling the board here. Yep. If they let this damage through, then that's even better for us. You always have to force your opponent to decide on their blockers. Yep, that's fine. Fine by me. Opponent does have enough creatures to be able to tap Catilda to put the +1/+1, save the Knight Arrows. I do kind of like that. Yep, double blocking, so yep, that's definitely the plan. Yep, go to first strike damage. Opponent's gonna tap Catilda, put that +1/+1 counter on everything. Yep. That's fine by me. Now, we may have lost 2 potential creatures to Sunfall, but we did get some extra damage through there. I like that. Exile the board. Now, let's go ahead and make our Samurai. Let's give it a +1/+1 counter. Now we'll just pass the turn. Now, our opponent can get rid of that with a Brutal Cathar. And I am fine with that. We are starting to get very close to having lethal as well on our opponent. Okay, there's Catilda again. Okay. Let's go ahead and mill our opponent some more. Okay. Activate our incubator. Union, let's gain a life. We do have another Sunfall here. I think we're going to start by moving to combat, swinging 4-6. Looks good to me. Let's go ahead and make our tokens. Do I want to clear the board first? I think so. I think we're just gonna clear the board. Our opponent can play out. Again, we'll minus here. I think this is gonna be the best way to go. This is threatening lethal a little bit quicker. Our opponent's going to have to start chump blocking with all the creatures that they play out to deal with us. Yep. They'll be able to gain some life here. Let's use Realm Breaker. Go and grab the Thicket. Yep. We'll activate this ability as well. Okay, Coppercoat Vanguard. Looking good. Alright, well, we are gonna push to close out the game here, so let's go ahead and exile Coppercoat. And we'll put a +1/+1 counter over here.
Remember your training.
We are gonna swing out. Our opponent's gonna have to block at least one of these. They're gonna block with the Luminarch Veteran to gain some life. No? Okay. Luminous Phantom. That's fine by me. At the end of our opponent's turn, they are gonna get back their Coppercoat. And we've got it! Alright, everybody, I hope you enjoyed. As we saw, Board Wipe Tribal is so good at keeping the board empty of threats, and in line with that, we're going to excel into matchups against aggro decks and mid-range decks that focus on building a strong board state and overwhelming us, their opponent. Now, on the flip side of that, some of the more late game and control matchups are going to be a little bit of a challenge for our deck, as our opponent doesn't really have to worry about too many threats on our side of the board, as long as they can hold on to one or two pieces of key interaction. For the moments when we're actually trying to play out one of our win cons, there is a chance that they can actually get ahead of us and win. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a like, and I'll see you all next time.